Okay, so in this video we're gonna quickly look at functions. We're gonna go through the syntax of functions. First, let's try to declare a function. Okay, as you can see, a function can be declared using this syntax fun and the name of the function. Here we have the name as main and a pair of parentheses and curly braces. And here this is the body of the function. Whenever you invoke the function, like let's say if you call it like main, this is how you invoke this function. The body of when you invoke the function, the body of the function runs, and if there's a return statement in the function body, that will be returned to the caller. So we're gonna be covering this documentation, this part of the documentation. So they start up with storing a function in a variable. For now, let's create a function and let's see how we can store that in a variable. I'm gonna create a greet function. So nothing fancy, just I'm not doing anything, just putting some statement in the function body. So we're gonna store this in a variable. So let's that's how you would think it would work, right? We're just passing the variable name to here, but that's not how it works in Kotlin. If you wanted to store a function in a variable, we need to use colon in front of the function name. So now we can call it. So this is how you store a variable, store a function in a variable. You use colon in front of the function name. So there's another way to declare functions. It's called lambda expressions. So we're gonna look at lambda expression now. So lambda expressions, you can easily identify lambda expressions because they use curly braces. So let's create our lambda expression, and so this is a lambda expression, but you whenever you create a lambda expression, you need to immediately store that in a variable. So if we are working with lambda expression, storing this function in a variable is much easier. All you need to do is like this, just pass in the function name, variable name, and you're done. Okay, so let's look at data types of functions. So every variables can have data types, right? So how are we gonna pass in data types for functions? So let's create a functions with explicit data type. If we just pass in like this, the Kotlin compiler will inference the type for us automatically. So what the Kotlin compilers inferred from this expression is, well, this it looks like this, because we're not passing in any parameters, we're not and then we're not returning anything. So if we're not returning anything, we use this type unit. So this is the expression we use to tell what types of parameters we are expecting. So if this function expected a integer, for example, we're gonna call like this. I mean not here though, here, right? Int. And if it returned a string, we would use string. So let's make this, okay? Let's call it number, and here make it int, and the return type so we cannot use return in the function body of the okay, so as you can see, we're passing this function. The type of this function is the parameters are int. If we added more parameters, we can use the type of the parameters like this, and this is the return type. So we're returning a string. Anything at the last line of the body of the lambda expression becomes the returning value. So let's look at how we can create data types for functions with functions that start with the fun keyword. So after the name of the function, you can place in a colon and declare the type. This becomes the returning type of this function. So let's return a string, same thing, hello world, and we can give types for the parameters individually. Let's say we want a number, we can call it int, and then message that is a string, and this is the return type of these functions, and we're also explicitly mentioning the types of the parameters. Now functions can return another functions. How are we gonna do that? So this is the functions type. So what if we put that in here, put it here and return this. Okay, so we after the colon, after the parentheses of the functions, we place in a colon, and then we pass in the function type to the return type of this function, and we can return a function. Or we could just let now the function Kotlin compiler thinks if we explicitly don't mention the return type of the function, Kotlin will think it doesn't return anything, so it uses unit. So we need to explicitly mention the type of the returning function. Also, let's see how you can pass a function in another function. So what if I wanted to, let's say, pass in a function? Let's call it a greet function, and we, after the colon, we can mention the type of the function we're expecting. So we can use this, and we're gonna return a string. So we're gonna call, let's see, we're gonna return greet function, and here the type becomes right. This expects a number, so we're gonna pass this. Okay, we're gonna call this function in here, greet function, and it expects a number and greet function. So we're gonna pass 5, and for greet functions we're gonna pass in this. So the function we passed matches the data type it's expecting. Okay, so this parameter expects this function type, and this is exactly the function that has that same data type, integer string. It accepts an integer parameter and returns a string. This also as integer and returns string, and this function returns a string, and exactly the function we are passing in returns a string, as you can see. So if we call that, we'll return a string, so we'll get used to it. So how do you make a parameter nullable? Making a parameter nullable means that you can call the function without passing that parameter, okay, without passing that argument. First you need to surround the type with parentheses and use a question mark. I mean here. So we need to check for null if we are to ever use that function. Let's make sure that is not null. Okay, so this is called a null check. And why are we getting? So it's expecting a return. I'll be back. Okay, I guess we need to provide an else statement if we are to ever use the if. So if the function is not null, we're gonna invoke it, or else in either case we need to return a string. So, and also this if you click on this, we get a message that return can be lifted out of if. So like this. Anyway, so what did we do? So basically, if we can now not we can now use this function without passing a second parameter, a parameter that expects a function. I'm I mean null. We can use null instead of that, I guess. Okay, so I think I got confused this function. I confused making a parameter null means I couldn't we can use that function without passing that particular parameter. So let's see how we can do that, how we can not pass a parameter. Okay, so I looked around. I think the only way to make the parameters optional is by using what Kotlin calls default values. So you can after the type of the parameters, we can use equal sign and value for that, and you can use a check in the body of the function and see the values of the parameters, and if the value is null, you can take another action. If the value for the parameter is provided, you can take another action. So let's look at the shorthand syntax for lambda expressions. Like I said, this is the lambda expression. Lambda expression starts with you can easily recognize it because they are defined inside of a curly braces, and parameters are defined inside of curly braces too. And then we can assign a type for the parameters followed by the parameter name, colon, and parameter type, and then this arrow, and then we return. This is the body of the lambda expression. So if only one parameter is defined inside of the lambda expression, we can use it. So this accepts an integer. So let's and it returns a string. So let's say it string. Let's go here and 5. We also need to put it into print. LO. So this using this syntax is same as number so this. Okay, so also let's look at another shortcut. If there's a function that expects a parameter as a function for parameters, we can pass in let's say great fun and here this expects a integer. Let's pass in an integer, and then this expects a function. So this, I'm using the same function, so this is the same type, so we can use this. We can just copy the lambda expression and paste it here. Okay, and that works. And also there's another shortcut, and this shortcut is called trailing lambda syntax. So if the function has a parameter that expects a function at a last place, like this function does, this greet function is a function, a parameter function that is declared at last. Okay, if that's the case, we can put this expression, lambda expression, outside of this parenthesis like this. This becomes a trailing lambda syntax. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So we looked at how we can assign a variable a function using basic function, like a function that starts with a fun keyword and a lambda expression. And then we looked at how we can add data types for functions, and then we also added types for return values of functions. And then we looked at how we can add functions to the parameters, how we can add function data types for parameters, and then we looked at how to make a parameter function in a parameter nullable. And then we looked at short syntaxes for lambda expressions. Okay, so at the end of this documentation, they mentions repeat function. So this is the signature of this function. As you can see, this expects a parameter that is int and accepts a function that's first parameter is int and returns nothing. I would leave this to you to read in the documentation. I'm not gonna cover it. Okay, that's pretty much it for this.